Welcome to H2K Infosys. H2K Infosys is a e-verify business based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We provide 100% job-oriented, instructor-led, face-to-face, true live online software training programs. It also includes access to cloud test lab with software tools. We provide live project for you to work on. We also provide assistance with mock interviews, resume preparation and review, and job placement assistance. H2K Infosys is trusted by so many students across the world. H2K Infosys provides world-class services in IT training with real-time project work for corporates and individuals, special IT training for MS students in the United States, software design, development, QA manual and automation, performance testing and maintenance, IT staff augmentation, job placement assistance, and tech support.
Because your EJB instance will get created by the container, and the container requires the default constructor to be available for your EJB beans. Once it has created the bean instance, it is available for servicing the client from the time onwards. Currently for stateless session bean, you can see that it has maintained the conversation state. The reason for that is stateless session beans, whenever a client asks for an instance creation, it will create an instance and the instance will be returned back to the pool once after usage. So that means the client one has requested for the first run, we have requested for an instance. It will verify are there any instances available on the pool. If that is the first time, it will create an instance and it will return the instance back to the client. Once the client has completed the usage for the bean, it will return the instance back to the pool instead of destroying the bean. Destruction, nothing but returning back to the pool in case of stateless session bean. When a second client has requested, this time it sees that there is already one instance available in the memory in the bean pool. Instead of creating a new instance, it will return the same instance back to the client. That means whatever the information that it was modified by the client one, this will be going to get the updated data. That's how it has received the amount value as 1250 instead of the default initialization value 1000. If the bean was, let us say, the instance was in use by the client one, and the client is still using the instance, then at this point of time, your EJB container understands that the instance was already in use and it will create a new instance and it will allocate to client 2. But when you are using stateless session bean, you are not sure whether the work has completed for the client 1 or not. Come back to stateful. In case of stateful, a dedicated instance of your stateful bean will be created and it will be associated to the client. That means if a second client comes, then the container won't look for the bean instance into the pool and it will directly create an instance and it will provide that to the client. So that means whatever the instance that will be returned by the container, it should be a new instance in case of stateful session bean. Even though the work has completed, let us say the client one has finished and the instance was available on the bean, on the pool, it won't allocate the same instance back to the client 2. Either the container will wait for some time to terminate the instance, or you can explicitly inform to the container that my work has completed. I just want to remove the bean from session pool itself. Normally, that is a good design to terminate the session or the stateless session bean once after our work has completed. We'll see how we can terminate that one. But in case of stateful, it is a dedicated instance will be going to create for each and every client. But in case of stateless, it will be maintained by the pool and it will be shared, the stateless bean, it will be shared between the clients. Here you can see that the instance access was available only until the bean. The instance will be provided by the container itself. But here you can see that the client 1 is directly access to instance 1. That is how currently you are able to get the details of your available balance as 1500 even with the same call. If you go and create a new instance, let us create one more instance. See here I am creating one more instance. Remote object 2 I am creating. So I'm calling directly remote object 2.getBalance. Currently I'm not depositing anything for the second instance. That means the value should be 1000 only. But when I'm trying to access this directly getBalance, we'll see whether the container will create a new instance or not. This time you can see that remote object 1.deposit and remote object 1.getBalance. Even for the same one, you are not able to get the updated value. This has created two separate beans at this level now. Let us execute one more time. This time you can see that it has returned the previous instance which was created from the starting time for our first run. So that means when you are using stateless session bean, you shouldn't guarantee that it will maintain a state for each and every call. Normally, stateless session beans works very fast, the response time, because it's not required to create a separate bean instance each and every time. But if you want to maintain a conversation state, you should go for stateful instead of stateless. Let us stop this one. Now write a stateful bean. New.
Krish?
Yep.
This is Shravante.
Hey, Shravante.
In stateless session name, whenever the client interacts the bean pool, so
okay.
which is going to get the latest instance or
in stateless?
Yeah, stateless here. when the client.
See, it is entirely dependent on the container. If it sees that the instance is free, it might return the same one, or it can create a new instance and return that one. It is entirely dependent on the container structure.
Oh, okay. So the results vary. I mean, vary, right? Every.
Exactly.
Oh,
Whenever we want to work with stateless bean, it should be a single method call.
okay.
You are not going to use successive method calls based on the previous result. So that means you are not going to use deposit and get balance when you are using stateless bean. You should go for stateful if you want to maintain the conversation state. Because for deposit and get balance, we need the conversation state to be available on the server side.
Oh, okay. So what kind of which scenarios we can go for the stateless session bean?
If you are going to post a message, then you will go for stateless beans, because posting a message means you are going to inform to the server. Everything needs to be done at the server side only. You are not going to maintain any kind of conversation state for that.
Okay.
And second thing is, if you go for Orbis to our ATRAN example, in that case, you are going to provide source, destination, start date, and receive date. You are going to fetch the response at a time. You are not going to maintain the conversation state in that case.
Oh, okay.
Only a single method call will fetch the whole response. So in that case, you'll go for stateless.
Okay. Thank you, Krish.
Yep. So create account stateful bean. Create both remote and local interfaces. Forgot to mention as stateful. Change this at this level itself. See, only difference from code perspective, you just need to change the access to stateful instead of stateless. But every work will, all work will be done at the container level only. So here you just need to implement. I'm going to implement the same interface. Copy the whole code. We are now deploying onto the server. Just restart our Java's application server. So it will build the ER file one more time because there are some changes within Java files. Once after that, this will deploy onto the server. Let's wait a minute. Because meanwhile, we if there are any missing. If you guys remember, during web services, we have discussed about one more annotation, resource annotation. The resource annotation will consist of some attributes, name and mapper name. By using resource annotation, you can ask the container to load any kind of external objects, or you can say external services. We have discussed about data source. Data source is a service, or you can say a resource, which is available on application server. Whenever there is a service available on the application server, it will register with global JNDI. That means what are all the applications that are deployed onto the application server, they can access the resources based on the JNDI names. That's the reason it was registering with the JNDI, the global JNDI. Let us say you have created a data source. Data source is nothing but which is used to create a connection pool, a pool of connections that are created by your application server upfront. So during your application startup itself, it will create the number of connections that you have asked, and it will make it available to your application. So once you have created or configured the data source, just like how you have configured queues or topics onto the application server, you are going to configure the data source also onto the application server. You can access this data source by using resource annotation. Once you have specified this is a resource, you are going to use the attribute mapped name to refer to the JNDI. Let us say currently I have created a data source called MySQL Access. MySQL Access will be the JNDI for my data source. To access this resource, you need to use the syntax Java:\MySQL Access. Once you have specified this one, and once you have declared any kind of resource, let us say I have declared the data source. This data source will get populated or will get assigned by this particular resource access during the deployment process or during the execution process. The resource will be retrieved based on this particular JNDI name, and the resource will get allocated or assigned to data source by your container. So within your method, let us say public void withdraw method. This is our method, right? Int data. Let us assume that I'm contacting the database. So that means I need a connection. When you call data source.get connection, you are going to get a single connection from your data source. So this data source object, see normally how we'll create an object for the data source. This is an interface. Someone else was supposed to create, or some implemented class was supposed to create. That will be taken care by your container, and it will directly provide the object, the implemented object to data source, and you can directly access data source.get connection. You are going to get a connection associated with this particular JDB, associated with this MySQL access. Not only this JDBC access, if you want to access some other resources, that also you can retrieve based on this resource annotation. This resource annotation, once you have specified within your bean class, the data source will get populated just before servicing any of the client requests. So your bean, once they have created a new instance, when a container has created a new instance, it will verify that are there any resource requests available within the bean, and it will create an instance for that, and then it will return the instance back to the client. So just before servicing any of the client requests, your resources will get populated by the container itself. Let us say you want some kind of context listener kind of stuff. So for each and every bean, we are supposed to get a connection. See, I can't write the data source.get connection at withdraw level. The reason for that is the connection needs to be used by all the methods, public void, deposit. At this level also, I need a connection. So I can't write the data source.get connection at this level. What I can do, I can use callback methods. Callback methods are just like your context initialized or context destroyed methods. Your container will call those methods just before invoking any of the client business methods, and also just before destroying your session bean as well. You can write any kind of name, no issues, public void initialize. This is used for initialization. And let us say public void object destroy. You can write any method names, no issues, but the method should consist of public void as the syntax, and it should specify the annotation post construct. This should contain the annotation pre-destroy. Post construct means once after bean object has created and resources are populated, this will call initialize method. Pre-destroy method, this will call just before destructing any kind of session beans. And for session beans, we have mentioned that it is a must case to terminate the instance, or else, let us say, number of session beans are created and the client hasn't mentioned anything related to the session. Number of beans are already created and they are available on the pool. The container was not able to create a new bean. It will throw an exception specifying that bean not available. So instead of that, whenever a client has completed, it is a spec recommended way that you are going to terminate the session once after your usage. This will be done by using an annotation @remove. Your client was supposed to call a method which is annotated with remove. When the client calls this remove annotated method, the container understands that he is going to terminate the session and the bean is not at all required for further usage. It's not required for you to write any kind of code in this. If you want, you can release the connection. Once after the method execution has completed, your container will remove the bean from the session pool itself. If the client was trying to call or trying to use the same session, then you will get no such EJB exception. You are going to get EJB exception. We'll see what is the lower level for that particular exception object. Let us stop at this level. I'm going to start as a separate JVM. Before restarting, I'm going to incorporate all those changes. I'm going to write a JNDI access method. So declare one variable, private data source. We'll see how to configure this onto the server. Resource. You can see that map name and name. Name is an optional one. You can specify map and name to the JNDI. So I'm going to create the same JNDI onto the application server as well. Once I have created a resource, currently I'm just adding that in the deposit method because I'm going to call this method from the client side. Before that, create the connection in post construct. Public void initialize data source dot get connection. Declare one connection variable. So I'm taking that connection in the con variable. Post construct initialize method called. I'll just print the connection object which got retrieved. And in the same way, declare one destroy method. So in destroy, I just need to close the connection. So this is pre-destroy method. So declare the annotation at the rate post construct at the rate pre-destroy. In the same way, write one more method with at the rate remove also. Public void remove object. So here I'm not going to write any code. To remove the session bean. So once after completing all this stuff, you are supposed to redeploy your application onto the server. Everything was completed. Post construct, pre-destroy, remove method. And the remove method you are supposed to expose to the client. That means the remove method was supposed to be available onto your interfaces, or else you can't expose that to the client. Oh, this is giving an error for stateless. That's fine.
So many of our students have given testimonials on how our training programs are. You will find them on kudzu.com and on our website H2Kinfosys.com. On our website H2Kinfosys.com, you will also find more detailed information on who we are, the courses that we offer, what each course covers. Also, if you're interested in a demo program, please register on our homepage on the left-hand side. Just give us more information about yourself and we will send you a link for a demo class. The demo class is absolutely free. Experience our commitment by just attending an orientation workshop at no cost. Our team of faculty and advisors are here to guide you with the right information. If you still have more questions, please feel free to call us. Call us at 770-777-1269. This is a United States number. If you're calling from the UK, call us at 020-337-17615. You can also email us at training@h2kinfosys.com or h2kinfosys@gmail.com. Thank you for watching our videos. We wish you a great career in information technology.